Live and live. Flip the camera like so. And YouTube is looking good. Nice, nice. Awesome. Things are looking good. Okay, so we are back again. We're getting low on these beans, but I'm confident that today we'll have a delicious cup of coffee with these Kenyan beans. We'll be using the same recipe as yesterday, but we'll also be changing our filter type. So yesterday, we used this thicker filter over here, and we realized that the brew time was around 6 minutes. And that is kind of like the downside of the Tetsu Kasuya method, because the amount of pulse pours and the amount of like agitation and then rest really allows the fines to rest in the filter's pores and clog it up, which will then slow down the brew time overall. So this time around, we're going to use a quicker filter that is a bit more, even faster than the paper filters, and we'll hopefully get a delicious cup of coffee with this. And the reasoning being that we will have a quicker brew time and it won't be over extracted. So let's begin. Looking over here, it's the same recipe as yesterday. Nothing has changed, but as a recap, it's a 1:15 brewing ratio. We're using 20 grams of coffee at a 43 grind size. The temperature is 92 degrees Celsius. The water dose is 300, and the 300 gets divided into a 40% dose and a 60% dose. The 40% dose is then divided into two other doses, a 40 pour and then an 80 pour. And the 60% dose is divided into two also, and 90-gram pour, and then another 90-gram pour. So that will be our recipe for today. Bringing that over here. Moving you peeps down like so. And moving you. Cool. So let's begin. We start off by measuring out our beans. We need 20 grams. Let's see. Can I move this like so? Yeah. We need 20 grams of coffee. Like so. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I always love chatting with you peeps, or just general thoughts. Here we got our coffee beans. Nom nom. We'll grind that. A lot of excess. Seems like it didn't fully purge the grinder last time. Like so. 20. Okay, and then we got our grinds over here. Okay, and now we'll get our boiling water. also a cup to brew into, like so. We'll preheat our filter, brewer, and cup. We'll toss out that water, like so. Tare, toss in the grinds, shake it up, bring it over to the timer, and now we cool down our liquid to 92 degrees Celsius. Like so. And we get ready to begin. So we're pouring 40 grams first, and then an 80-gram dose, and then a 90, and then a 90-gram dose. And we're letting the liquid fully drain out before pouring the next segment. And it'll look something like this. Start the timer. Pour 40 grams of liquid. Let it fully drain out. And then we pour the 80-gram segment. Moving it all the way up to 120. Like so. And keep in mind that you kind of want to pour on the filter where the grinds are to like pull it down during each pour, just to make sure that all of the grinds are being a part of the extraction. So I'm like pouring it on the side over here, just bringing it down. Because I'm not using any like swirling agitation or methods to bring the grinds down. It's important to just not pour too vigorously so that it like splashes up and gets grinds up top. So just pour a bit slower than normal, but not like super slow like the osmotic flow. Question, dog or cat? I like to cuddle with dogs more, but I think if I ever got a pet, I would get a cat. I like the hands-off approach with cats, and I think that they would suit my lifestyle way more. And I sadly enough don't understand what else you're saying. And now this is our last pour over here, all the way up to 300 grams, like so. What about you, Hiroshi? Dog or cat? Oh, I understand Neko ka Inu, because I know Neko is cat and Inu is probably dog. Shiba Inu. So Neko, cat or dog? Okay, so this is a much more reasonable brew time. So the liquid is fully drained from all of the segments, and we're at 3 minutes and 10 seconds. This is much more reasonable, and I'm excited for this. So we got a question here. Do you change the way you brew your coffee, grind size, temperature, etc., when using freshly roasted beans versus beans that are a few weeks old? Do you want to extract more or less out of the beans that have aged for a few weeks already? So, yeah, let's move the cameras up. So, one thing with fresh beans is that sometimes a bean can be too fresh and you need to have it like develop a bit and let it degas to fully get its potential. But what happens over time is that it starts losing potential. So the way that the curve goes is that you want to extract it less in the beginning, so the first couple of days, and then your normal extraction. And then like over time, since the potency of the bean is getting lost, you kind of want to try to grind finer, use a higher brewing temperature to try to squeeze a bit more out of the bean. So over time, I usually grind a bit finer just to like try to get more out of the bean. There's another way to like think about it also, and it's just that it's losing its potency over time. It's losing those oils, and you want to like just extract a bit more from it. So grind a bit finer with older beans. Try to extract a bit more from those older beans. And there we got the cup of coffee. Now, I would say beans that are like 3-4 days after roasting and a couple of weeks after roasting aren't that big of a difference. I know that a lot of cafes recommend that you should be using it before X, Y, and Z, and like they have like a 1 month or like a couple of weeks of like expiration date. But even light roast beans really take a lot of something's boiling over. Give me a sec. I'm making a tempeh on the side too. So even what's happening is that some beans that are light roast actually have its best extraction periods like weeks after roasting. So it depends on the roast level. It depends on the bean origin. It depends on a lot of different variables that impact how much you should be extracting from the beans. So you can't really put a blanket statement being like, always extract more, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks into it. You just have to like play it by ear. Morning, the Sheblood. Hope everything is going well. Today we got a really good brew, as in brew time. This was 3 minutes and 10 seconds with a quicker filter. And we're gonna taste it now. So even just the brewing process, I could tell from yesterday's brew that this one's going to be hopefully more balanced and more like not over extracted compared to yesterday's cup, which was a 6-minute brew time, which was crazy. I never get brew times up in that range, but combining my like slowest coffee filter with a pouring technique that is pulse pouring, which allows the fines to really settle in and clog the filter, that is like a recipe for a long brew time. So that's what happened yesterday. But today, hopefully this cup is delicious. Let's see. So this cup has some interesting acidities. I think it's actually a bit under extracted now. So it has like a slight sharp acidity, but not so intense of a sour. So it's not really under extracted. It's just a bit under extracted. And even though it is slightly under extracted, it has a really good body. So the silkiness that I'm getting is there. I'm not getting that raspy dryness that I got from yesterday's brew, where the over extraction just totally overshadowed the cup and made my mouth and tongue really dry. But this one over here is coating my mouth way better. It has a slight annoying acidity in the beginning, but it does have a pleasant acidity too. Let's see if we can find some sweetness in here. And I know it's a good like mouthfeel cup when I take my tongue and I like move it around my outer or like inner lip areas. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's silky. Like that's such a indication of a good mouthfeel when you feel that silkiness from the liquid. So I'm not getting those berry notes that I was getting in my cupping session still in this cup. Like it's not present, which makes me believe that the sourness or the slight under extraction is kind of overshadowing those acidities in the cup. So I'm gonna add a dash of water and see if it opens up a bit. If it does, that means that we are still not perfectly there, as the extraction just needs a bit more of a tweaking. But overall, this is probably one of the better cups we've had with these beans. It's slowly getting to a good point. Yeah, like if you've never added a dash of water to your cup of coffee when it's slightly under extracted, I highly recommend you getting into that routine and process of trying it with the dash of water, because in my opinion, it just like went up a level. Whenever I add a dash of water to like a slightly under extracted cup, it really just opens it up. And it's kind of like a magical slight touch that you add to under extracted cups. Let's see over here. I was sent some coffee beans from Colombia with the tasting notes of bright acidity, but it turns out to be a medium dark roast, and I could not really taste much acidity. Yeah, that's too bad, because darker roasts are just a lot of the times overshadowing a lot of those acidities, and I don't know how they would link a medium dark roast to high acidity, but maybe it's a high acidity according to the roaster's lineup. So maybe these people roast their coffee really dark normally, and then this medium dark is fancy and on the acid side, and compared to their lineup. So I would say, even though it's not showcasing those acidic notes, brew them as they are. Like, don't really take the coffee bag's advice as law. Just, you've already noticed the coffee beans are slightly on the medium dark side, and you know that the beans aren't really showcasing any acidity. Instead, embrace that roast level flavor notes in the bean and don't worry too much about that acidity. That's just how the coffee bean life works sometimes. I always add water to my mocha brews. So you're making a mini Americano, or like a long black for yourself with the mocha pot and water. Nice. Yeah, I love Americanos. They're delicious. So I usually get filtered coffee when I go to a cafe, but whenever I get a Americano, I'm like, why am I not getting this instead all the time? Because I can always make filtered coffee at home. So I need to like stop getting into that filtered coffee mentality and have like my cortados, flat whites, Americanos, and stuff when I go out. So David says, you seem to get more from the cupping. Is cupping as a daily driver a thing? If it's bringing out the most? Interesting. Yeah, I did get the most out of the cupping, but it wasn't like the cup that I would enjoy drinking. It really did highlight a lot of the notes in the coffee that I would strive towards extracting into my cups of coffee, but the body is like extremely light in cupping, and it's all about just noticing those nuances and notes in the coffee. So it's more like a roadmap to the coffee and not the treasure itself. So it's giving you basic overall guidelines as to what to expect from this coffee, but it's not really the coffee itself. So cupping is kind of like just not a daily driver, in my opinion. And it's also such a headache to like clean and stuff. So, but it's very similar. So a cupping session is very similar to James Hoffmann's like French press technique, but with a higher brewing ratio. Meaning what he does with his French press is that he does pretty much a cupping session, but with a higher brewing ratio to get a cup of coffee. So a lot of people do enjoy that style of cup, which is extremely light, delicate, has a lot of clarity, and focuses on just those tasting notes of the coffee. So there are techniques that are embracing more of that clarity that you would get in a cupping session that you can find with different brewing devices. And I even think that James Hoffmann's pour over V60 technique kind of is a reflection of this too, because he's all about like fine grinds, fast speed, getting a super light and delicate cup with light roasts. And this is just kind of like the cupping lens being put onto a lot of different brewing devices to try to get the same type of quality in his final cups of coffee. So it is a way to brew coffee for sure, but it's not my preferred way. I feel like there's a lot of joy and pleasure that can be found in the deliciousness of a bodied and viscous and like juicy cup. So those techniques that focus more on cupping and those notes and the lightness and the delicate feel of things won't really like get those aspects in the cup of coffee. Hopefully that makes sense. So overall, I think that this is it's a pretty good cup of coffee after the dash of water. I think that we can extract a bit more and make it better. So what we're gonna do I'm gonna change the brewing ratio from 1 to 15 to 1 to 16, because I think that adding another segment in the strength area, so remember that the 60% segment controls strength in coffee with this technique. And if I add one more, I remember it being really slow when I did my first or second brew with 3 segments. So I feel like that's just a bit too much. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to increase my brewing ratio to 16, and then I'll recalculate everything and get some new numbers over here to brew for tomorrow. So that will just add a bit more water and extraction to the cup of coffee to hopefully bring this to a perfectly balanced and delicious point. So let's write that down. So we're going from 1 to 15 to 1 to 16. And today's cup thought it was pretty good. Not perfect, and it was slightly under-extracted. Somewhere over here. And this was with the fast filter. Excellent. So I don't know if you peeps have seen, but I live streamed yesterday after the brews and stuff in the afternoon. And I was doing it on my computer this time around. So I was going through and like kind of doing like a live stream with like a desktop screen share thing. And I was going through something called the Coffee Iceberg, which is just showcasing the depth and breadth of the coffee hobby through this really weird meme. And I really enjoyed it. I think that it would be a lot of fun to do more live streams that actually have a focus on creating content. So even making things like tier lists about regions that I like, or brewing devices that I think are good for beginners, or brewing devices that I think are high in skill level versus low in skill level. And I think that that possibility of just live streaming and talking to chat and creating that piece of knowledge at that time is like amazing. Because usually I create videos on my own and I just edit them and I like slowly hash them out and like press the publish button. But with this more like fluent live stream technique, I just literally do the research and make the content with you peeps at the same time. And it's just pretty fun. I need to do more of that, or at least explore it, test it out. But yeah, if you missed it, it's in the live stream archives. It's a long one. It's a doozy. It's like an hour long. But I pretty much just go through all of the different words in the Coffee Iceberg. And yeah, it's pretty solid. And I also add extra words that I think are suitable for it. Yeah, I should make an announcement. I should like post it on the community tab or something. I kind of just like, okay, let's go live. Other than this segment, though, this segment is pretty consistent with the time frame and weekdays. So the other live streams, I need to be a bit more preemptive with my times and actually promote it a bit. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with this cup. It could be better. It's not perfect just yet, but it has come a long way since the beginning brews of this cup over here with the Tetsu Kasuya technique. And I'm really fascinated at how slow the brew gets after pulse pouring. I think that is quite fascinating, and how much like slower the last pour is when you are pulse pouring. Like how the filter gets clogged and the last pour is just like a minute long sometimes with the slower filters. Just is that because of the like how many factors are impacting that, and is there a way to calculate it? Is my thought process over here. Like, can I measure it somehow? Can I figure it out? Maybe, maybe not. But it's at least a element of the brewing process that you need to be aware of. So whenever you see a brewing technique that is pour overs, that has a free-flowing liquid going from top to bottom, pulse pouring or pouring in segments really slows down the process, which increases extraction. Yeah, and that is physics, indeed. I need a physicist. I need like a team of people with like lab coats and like vials and small things around to measure things for me. Okay, so thanks for joining. I don't know when my next live stream will be, but it will probably be like sometime next week. I will, as in live stream at the desktop. You'll see me tomorrow here at the same time. But yeah, I need to maybe make a schedule for it, you know? And I should post that schedule somewhere. Yes. A schedule, that would be nice. Okay, I'll figure it out. I'll think about it and I'll figure it out and I'll make some type of a routine, because me just turning on the camera here and there at random is not a good way to do it. Thanks for joining. A lot of good ideas, a lot of good chatter. I love it. And I am yet again probably a dog person, but I would probably own a cat. And that's what I'm going to end it at. I'll close you peeps first. See ya. And then I'll take my leave over here. Have a great day, everyone. See ya. End stream.